When you think about LEGO video games, odds are good that you probably think about games made by Traveler's Tales or TT Games. And it makes sense. Traveler's Tales has become iconically synonymous with the LEGO company, having created award-winning games like the LEGO Star Wars the video game, and even through other franchises like Harry Potter, Indiana Jones, Jurassic World, even Lord of the Rings, they've become an iconic household name for family-friendly video games. While it has become undeniable that TT Games is what most people expect from a LEGO video game, it only really scratches the surface of what a LEGO video game really is. From the original LEGO Island all the way to LEGO Fortnite and LEGO Horizon Adventures, the world of LEGO video games is vast and varied, and most of those games face a very difficult challenge because they're not tied to any franchise like many of the TT games are. See, when TT Games makes a game like LEGO Batman or LEGO Avengers or LEGO Lord of the Rings, they're able to reuse a lot of the music that was already used for those movies. The music to those franchises has already been established. So if you go away from those franchises and you want to make a LEGO video game, you have to ask the question, what does a LEGO video game sound like? If you go and watch a Harry Potter movie, you know exactly what the music should sound like, usually just based on what the trailer is. You see all these kids in this incredible castle, you see magic and weird quirky robes and trolls and things, so you know that the music is going to reflect a lot of the same things. And this idea goes beyond the idea of sequels, it goes into entire franchises like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You see, when you go and see a Marvel movie, you expect the music to be heroic, super, incredible, adventurous. And while there are certainly some deviations to that, like the harpsichord in Doctor Strange, versus the rock inspirations from Iron Man, you still get the core idea of the fact that you're watching superheroes. Now, the LEGO company is unique because they're not a movie franchise, they're not a book series, they're a toy company. A toy company that's created spaceships, the Wild West, and policemen, and medieval knights and castles. The LEGO company tells so many stories outside of the franchises that they partner with. So what is the musical identity of the LEGO company? To figure this out, let's go a little bit further and find out about the company that actually makes the brick. You see, the LEGO company was not first built on LEGO bricks. It was actually built on wooden toys, with their most iconic being this wooden duck. One of the most iconic stories is about its founder, Ole Kirk Christensen, and how his son, Gottfried, had decided to try and cut costs by only adding 2 layers of varnish to this iconic wooden duck. And when he proudly told his dad that he had found a way to cut costs by adding 2 layers of varnish instead of their typical 3, the response that he got from his dad was, "You'll immediately fetch those ducks back, give them the last coat of varnish, pack them and return them to the station, and you'll do it on your own, even if it takes you all night." We live in a world where people are proud of finding costs that they can just cut, so that production costs come down and the profit goes up. So what is it about the LEGO company that we learn from just this experience? It's summed up in what was an early motto of the LEGO company: only the best is good enough. Now wait a second, we're talking about a toy company for kids. Why do they care so much about perfection that a father needs to scold his son for cutting costs? This is one of the reasons I'm honestly kind of obsessed with the LEGO company, is because their priority is kids. And where their identity really starts to show through is when you see that their passion is about helping kids reach their creative potential. They understand that the next innovation and the next building blocks of culture and creativity come from the minds of kids. And the best way to give them the tools to be able to cultivate those creative juices is really to give them toys that will allow them to learn how to innovate, learn how to be creative, and use their imagination. And through this, I think we start to find words that define the LEGO company: creative play. Creativity is vast and imagination is so unexplainable. I think that in itself takes its own category for what their identity is, but I think playing with Lego bricks, we can break down a little bit further. Because first, it's epic. Whenever you sit down with a Lego set, the possibilities are endless. And especially when you have franchises that are well known, how incredible is it that you get to have Spider-Man team up with Gandalf to take down a Mind Flayer? You're able to literally create worlds that don't exist. And it's not like you're bringing in a set from one toy and another toy and they just don't fit. You can make them fit however you want to where it makes the most sense. Playing with Lego sets is epic, it's creative, but today, what I want to talk about is the fact that it is weird.
Howdy, guys!
Quiet, nope, stools don't talk.
Come sit on me!
Stools don't talk.
You can't deny that playing with Lego sets is a little bit quirky just because of how they're naturally designed. And the Lego company really embraces their silliness. They're not afraid to be childlike and have childlike humor.
First law of the sea. Never place your rear end on a pirate's face.
That's also a big part of what makes the TT games so memorable is that you take franchises that you're familiar with and they are able to take the scenes and make them really goofy and silly.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Now, translating the idea of quirkiness into music doesn't have any particular rules, but it does have some tendencies. Let's start all the way back with the very first Lego video game, Lego Island.
Let go.
The remix of someone just saying Lego sets the tone of something familiar to the 90s, but conveys a bit of quirkiness. What follows is a whole scene setting up the goofy nature of the game, with the music sounding groovy and serious, until you get, well, whatever this is.
I'm the pizza delivery dude, the dude with the food. Ollie!
Now watch this!
The best description I can give is that it's a 90s beat breakdown with a toy pipe organ. In another context, it would sound unnatural and wrong, but for the world of Lego Island, it just makes sense. And that's part of making music sound quirky, is using sounds that just don't sound like they should fit. This has been something consistent all the way from Lego Island all the way until Lego Horizon Adventures. Based off of the popular game series, the game takes a well-known video game character and creates a brand new story and experience through the world of Lego bricks, which is convenient for us because we can take a direct comparison and see what makes them different. The original theme for the main character Alloy is a serious, emotional theme and sets the tone for the type of adventure you'd expect from a AAA company. So what makes the sound of Lego Horizon Adventures so different? To begin, you already hear it starts brighter and more fun, like it's something you can dance with. And in this world that blends post-apocalyptic with tribal culture, with giant robotic animals, what else would make sense but a banjo? This whole soundtrack is an excellent example of how you bring in quirkiness into the soundtrack and fit it in so well that it sounds unique. It sounds like it should be a part of a Lego video game, but it still holds this element of quirkiness. While tone and timbre can absolutely be one of the ways you convey quirkiness in a piece of music, I think one of the most effective ways is through the composition itself. And to give us an example of what that might sound like, we're going to go back to what is probably one of my most nostalgic video games, Lego Racers. Lego Racers is the Lego company's version of kart racing game, with a lot of fun characters, a really cool power-up system, iconic tracks, and of course, building systems. Every piece of music in the game has an identity of fun and silliness that perfectly matches the different settings of each race, but I want to look at the music for the main menu. There's an undeniably unique and silly sound to it, and a big part of it is the sounds they chose to use. but the composition also leans heavily on the use of staccato notes and chromaticism. Let's look at a brief description of both staccato and chromaticism. So staccato is when you take a note and play it as quickly and short as possible. So for example, if you took the LEGO Racers main theme and you took away the staccato notes, this is what it would sound like. But instead, you want to make it choppy. You want to make it short so that those notes really stick out. That's what we mean when we talk about things being staccato, and that's all throughout this main theme. But what I think really makes it quirky is chromaticism. Chromaticism is when you use any note outside of the key you've already established. And LEGO Racers is in the key of C major, which makes it really easy for us to demonstrate, because the key of C major is simply all of the white keys on a piano. So to visualize what chromaticism is, it's any time you use any of the black keys on the piano. And in this theme, that happens constantly. The main theme of LEGO Racers has 4 distinct parts. First is the melody, which establishes the key of C major and then quickly moves out of it when it goes to the note B flat. To enforce this chromaticism, you have the second part of the theme, the response. It's meant to sound like an echo of the last part of the melody to reinforce what you just heard, and in this case, to really hammer down on the quirkiness of the B flat. The bass line also goes to the B flat, but what's interesting is how it gets there. In music, whenever you talk about the distance between 2 notes, it's called an interval. And there's one particular interval that's been called the devil's interval. Because it sounds so bad and so wrong, it was outlawed in church music because it sounded like the devil himself made it. Or maybe you were summoning the devil. I don't really remember exactly why it's called that. But what's interesting is that's exactly how the bass line gets down to the B flat. It's quirky, it's weird, it shouldn't fit, and yet it works perfectly. The fourth part of the main theme is this accompaniment line, which only shows up the second time the melody is played. This accompaniment line is largely in the background, but it leans into the concept of chromaticism really heavily. Out of the 5 black keys that are available to use, it uses 3 of them. And when all of these things work together, what you get is something that is undeniably LEGO music. Now, there are many more examples of LEGO video games using quirkiness within their music. But as the video games themselves evolve over time, so does the music, and they begin to be a little more epic and a little more creative. For the turn of the century, the LEGO company relied heavily on kids' imaginations in playing with their LEGO bricks. Imagination drove the stories of the sets that they would play with, so the LEGO group would produce the sets with cowboys, aliens, and several city structures, but never gave you a character-driven story. In some ways, this was a contributor in what would become a significant financial struggle within the LEGO group. Costs of production were not going down, and the company was trying to be too diverse in the type of product they were selling, and people started to become disinterested in buying new sets because once you had one Wild West town, what would you do with another one? With no stories tied to each set, they didn't really have anything that separated them from other sets, or in some cases even worse, what separated them from other brick building toys. This started to change in 1999 with the introduction of LEGO Rock Raiders, which had its own series of stories outside of the sets and even had its own video game, but unfortunately was a relatively short-lived theme. What really changed the trajectory of the LEGO group was none other than Star Wars. Partnering with a movie franchise that has the word war in the name and depicts some pretty graphic stuff is something that was not exactly popular within the LEGO group. The LEGO Group has always wanted to make sure that they are family friendly so that all ages feel comfortable playing with it, and so if they partner with a movie that shows someone's arm getting cut off, that's not exactly good for all ages. On top of that, there was actually a concern about how German mothers of the time would view the LEGO company trying to sell their kids stormtroopers. After a lot of debate and some serious persuasion, the LEGO Group finally decided to dive into this partnership headfirst, and it was a huge success. Now kids everywhere could recreate memorable moments from the movies that they loved, or they could create whole new scenes based on what they could build. At a time where the LEGO Group was struggling to stay afloat as a business, the LEGO Star Wars line was a huge player in keeping them alive until they could turn their struggles around. The impact of LEGO Star Wars gave them the confidence to partner with other franchises and let the kids decide how they wanted to play with their bricks. But there's actually a different original LEGO theme that gave them the confidence to be able to create more original stories for their LEGO sets. That was none other than my favorite, LEGO Bionicle. Depending on who you ask, Bionicle was the savior of the LEGO Group. It was this original concept that blended robots with tribal islands and gave them amazing powers through the use of their individual masks. The lore of Bionicle runs incredibly deep, and the physical toy line asked the question, what if you could build your own action figure? On a personal level, Bionicle really defined a lot of my childhood. One of my earliest memories is of my dad coming home from a work trip and bringing me back my very first Bionicle. It was Toagali, by the way. I still remember to this day the day that they said Bionicle was canceled, and I decided that was the day I had to grow up. I didn't actually grow up, I just said that I would. Bionicle was hugely influential, insanely profitable, had its own line of books, comic books, movies, and of course, video games. And between the partnership with Star Wars and the creation of the Bionicle line, original stories became an important part of building with LEGO bricks, and would lead into the video games reflecting those same feelings of incredible storytelling and epic adventure. We mentioned in the previous video about how playing with LEGO bricks is epic, but what exactly does that mean when we talk about something feeling epic? A phrase that I consider to be synonymous with the idea of epicness is something that is larger than life. An amazing quest to defeat a dragon, or a space adventure to explore a new world, or even someone winning a race against all odds. Translating the idea of something epic into music is something that has been done over and over and over, to the point where if I were to talk about epic music, you probably know the kind of music that I'm talking about. I would argue that what we typically see as epic music is only a part of what the genre actually is, and I would subdivide it into three categories. The first type of epic music I would talk about is the genre of pessimistic epic music. This is something you typically hear at a final boss fight. Dark, foreboding, ominous, but still grand and larger than life. You don't want it to sound like a horror game, but you still want to convey this sense of fear. Typically, you can't define an entire soundtrack just on how the final boss sounds, but there is a soundtrack that is a really good example of capturing the essence of pessimism throughout its epic music. If you're a gamer, I think you know exactly where this is going. Let's take a look at Elden Ring. Elden Ring and the other Dark Souls games are built off of difficult gameplay in a world that is dark, and the bosses are just downright scary. From the beginning of Elden Ring, you get a clear message from the music. You're gonna die a lot in this game. The main theme itself sounds like a final boss to most video games. And that's before you ever start your adventure at all, which is exactly what they want you to feel. The idea of a Dark Souls game is that if the challenge seems impossible, then your satisfaction in beating the challenge will be incredible. So if the music is conveying that you're going to die and then you don't, you should feel this sort of catharsis of like, I did it. I did something that should not have been possible. But from the get-go, the music should translate as, I don't think I can do this. That's pessimistic. Now, what you typically hear as epic music, I would define as realistic epic music. This is the kind of stuff you'll hear around other bosses or main menus to convey a sense of challenge or adventure that's waiting to be overcome. The situation should be challenging, yes, but you should feel like you have a fighting chance. There are plenty of examples in music to convey realistic, epic music. What I think is a great example is Batman Arkham City. When you take a quick look at the story of Batman Arkham City, a portion of Gotham has been turned into a giant holding cell for criminals where they have taken over and basically rule a part of Gotham. This would normally be too much for one person if that person wasn't Batman. Everyone knows Batman's reputation, so when you take on the role of the Caped Crusader, the music should make you feel like the situation is dangerous, but you've got everything you need to win. Realistic epic music should seem like this grand adventure that you know you're going to win as long as you put in the effort. As long as you try hard enough, you know you're going to do it. But when you're a kid, you don't see the villains for as dangerous as they are as much as you see Batman for who he truly is. The concept of a hero failing is foreign, and so the music of LEGO video games tends to reflect those same feelings. This is where we get our third subgenre, optimistic epic music. A story that is optimistically epic should convey that there are challenges that don't stand a chance against you. You are the hero. In most LEGO video games, if there's a threat of dying, you don't face the same consequences as other video games. And in many cases, you just respawn in the same place you were just in with full health. To get an idea of what optimistic music sounds like, let's dive into the LEGO Group's first attempt at a massive multiplayer online game, LEGO Universe. When it first came out, it was an online game that required a subscription service of $20 a month, and at the time I got $5 a week for doing my chores. So I saved up all of my money every month just to be able to play LEGO Universe. There were so many amazing worlds to explore, factions to join, plenty of building opportunities, fun mini-games, memorable characters. Everything about it, to me, was perfect. The story you're given from the beginning of the game is that the source of pure imagination has been corrupted, and it's your job as a minifigure to restore imagination while battling the corrupted imagination called the Maelstrom. And you are the hero. You are here to restore imagination, and you are going to do it because you cannot be stopped. How does this feeling of optimism get translated into the main theme of LEGO Universe? Right off the bat, you have an instant feeling of hope and optimism, but what makes it sound so uplifting while also sounding epic? Referring back to how we defined what makes something sound quirky, it does come down to both the sounds and the composition itself. What sets LEGO Universe apart from other epic sounds is the use of traditional nostalgic orchestration. In LEGO Universe, the sounds are brighter and higher in their range, so that the immediate impression is that things are already looking up even though there's a significant challenge ahead. The use of percussion is also really important when you talk about epic music, because typically you think of the big war drums like taikos or toms. But in LEGO Universe, instead they really focus on the snare drum, which is also used like a war drum, but instead you have this idea of duty, of responsibility, this drive, that you're going to accomplish the mission rather than the mission is going to be a challenge for you. Now, there are two main things within the composition itself that give the idea of heroism and optimism. The first is when we look at the melody, it has a trajectory that tells us about an adventure where we're going to get to overcome and come home. The story that the melody conveys may not be noticed at first, but once you see it written down, it's easy to understand even if you don't know how to read music. We've talked before about how an interval is just the distance between two notes, and one of the most powerful sounding intervals is a perfect fifth. Superman, for example, as the iconic symbol of hope and heroism, has a memorable theme that relies solely on the movement between these notes that make up a perfect fifth. The musical relationship between these two notes is strong and reliable, and is found within most chords in any key. And the very first notes you hear in the LEGO Universe main theme are a perfect fifth, which conveys right off the bat that you are the powerful hero of this story. The adventure you're about to go on is reflected in the melody when the main idea is restated, but deviates away from our starting a note even further. And what you see in the melody is a methodical journey back to the starting note with some surprising leaps and turns, but everything pointing back towards the beginning of the journey, the source of pure imagination. What really caught my attention with this piece of music was actually the chord progression and how they conveyed hope and optimism with the chord structure that they used. One of the cliches about music is that when you want to make something sound happy, you use a major chord. And if you want something to sound sad, you use a minor chord. Which is interesting because LEGO Universe is in the key of D minor. You want to convey optimism and hope, so why would you start in a key that's supposed to sound sad? The composer, Brian Tyler, recognized that sometimes hope is found in the darkest of places first. So if you establish from the beginning a chord that sounds sad, you can inject a lot of hope by what you put around it. And for the first half of the theme, the chord D minor is surrounded by nothing but major chords, showing how just a little change can turn something from dark to light. And the best example of this is actually in the restatement of that first idea, when the D minor chord actually becomes a D major chord through the changing of just one note. We don't have two minor chords near each other until this moment, which may be the darkest moment in the theme. But is soon followed by a chord we haven't seen yet, the A major. And A major as a chord has a similar relationship to D minor as the two notes of a perfect fifth have with each other. It's strong, it's reliable, and A major will always lead back to D minor in a satisfying way. So the music of LEGO Universe tells a story of optimism, that when things are dark there is always hope, and if things seem to be at their darkest point, it may just be a sign that the dawn is coming and we're almost home. There are many other examples of LEGO music being epic in a way that conveys optimism and hope that you are going to overcome whatever challenge comes your way. And that's at the core of the LEGO Group's beliefs, is that if you are given the right tools, you can do whatever you want in your life. All it takes is some intentionality, some hard work, and a little bit of creativity. The LEGO Group was built on imagination. A simple idea about bricks that interlock together so that after you build something you can take it with you and not have to worry about it falling apart. But the goal of producing the Lego brick was not simply to be a display model for kids. Playing with Lego bricks has always been a way to open up a creative part of your brain that is looking for something new to imagine. The LEGO Group has always prioritized imagination and creativity within the minds of both children and adults. Wherever you go, you are surrounded by imagination. Office buildings, various forms of transportation, garden tools, clothes we wear, the houses we live in, all of these were once an idea. Many of the ideas that have been created were either solving a problem or improving on an idea that has existed previously. But our lives are defined by creative thinkers, even if we don't always see it that way. Typically, when we think about imagination and creativity, it's something that we kind of perceive as going away the older you become. The further away you get from childhood, the less imaginative that you are. And while I think that might be true in some cases, I think that imagination and creativity just changes from the time that you're a kid to the time that you're adult. It's like if you know that if you put A and B together, you would get the result of C. A lot of adult creative thinkers see that as a normal process and use their creative skills to figure out how to make the combination of A and B easier. The reason we see kids as being more imaginative is because kids will see that A plus B equals C and wonder, what if we put A with Z? This tends to result in some crazy ideas and inventions that kids come up with, and stories that to adults may seem jumbled and all over the place. But the beauty of imagination is that it has no limits, and it encourages you to test and try and find some new way of looking at something. And for kids who may have yet to establish an idea of how the world typically works, they are the perfect ones to introduce something new into the process. To a kid, anything can be anything. A stick could be a sword, a napkin could be a treasure map, a tree could be a dragon. Imagination is something that is uniquely human and encourages us to create something better for ourselves. And this is why the LEGO Group is so focused on cultivating those creative impulses and encouraging play regardless of your age. To build something new, whether it's something from an existing story or something you've never seen before. Building with LEGO bricks activates that creative part in our brain, and it does it using nothing but plastic bricks. On the surface, playing with LEGO bricks is incredibly simple. You just take 2 bricks, stack them on top of each other, and then take another brick, stack it on top of that. But just like any other creative medium, it is the combination of the simplicity and potential that makes something truly unique. Take, for example, the simple 2x4 studs LEGO brick. There was a time that the LEGO Group boasted about the potential of playing with 6 of these bricks of the same color, saying that there were over 1 million different ways that you can combine those bricks. They were wrong. A man named Soren Eilers pointed out that the calculations that the LEGO company made assumed combinations of bricks that resulted in a stack of bricks that was 6 bricks high. But there were many other ways of combining these bricks in unique patterns that resulted in the final calculation being over 915 million different possible combinations. But the LEGO Group is more than just a collection of 2x4 standard bricks. From very early on in the company, you actually have this idea of what is referred to as the LEGO system, that every brick that is produced, no matter when it is produced, will always connect with other bricks in some other way. So that whether you have bricks that are old or new, whether they are flat or thick, no matter what their connection points might be, there is some way to connect them to the other bricks. In 2026, there are over 180 different color options, and the number of unique LEGO bricks total somewhere in the tens of thousands. The potential for creative and imaginative play is endless. You could make anything you want and do it in ways nobody has ever seen before. Using bricks in unique ways has become so popular that there's actually an acronym for it, NPU. When someone takes a brick that you expect to play a certain kind of role and uses them in a new and imaginative way. A hot dog could be an anchor. A frog could be the leaves of a tree. The possibilities are truly endless. Imagination is simply the combination of simplicity, like putting together 2 bricks, and the potential of what you could do with those bricks. So the question remains, what does that sound like? As always, translating an idea into music is simply the combination of both sound and composition. And there are 2 really fantastic LEGO video games that display both sides of sound and composition. One of the best examples of using sound to express creativity is in the video game LEGO Builder's Journey. Builder's Journey is beautiful. It's art. That's not something you'd expect to hear about a LEGO video game, but that's what it is. It's a puzzle adventure that forces you to think creatively both in your puzzle solving, but also in your interpretation of the story. The characters that are portrayed within the game are often understood to be a father and son, but the depictions of the father and son are about as minimalistic as they come. And yet you can see pretty clearly from the beginning of the game what they're supposed to be. In terms of music, Builder's Journey has an absolutely beautiful soundtrack with a wide array of sounds that really convey simplicity and creativity combined. But I think the process of the composition is part of what makes it so creative, because everything that you hear is just a piano. The composer, Henrik Lindstrad, was challenged to only use pianos in the music of Builder's Journey and found incredible ways of manipulating the sound of the piano to create sounds that are new and exciting and give a sense of wonder. but it's all a piano. Simple, reliable, comfortable, something we all know, but given the opportunity, has great potential to establish a brand new world of sound. But when you take the idea of translating imagination and creativity into the composition, I don't think there's a better example in any game than the main theme for LEGO Fortnite. Now, when I first heard about LEGO Fortnite, I was a little skeptical, but the more I looked into the gameplay of LEGO Fortnite, I realized just how different it is. It's a survival world where you go out and explore and find new places, and it's always going to be different. You build your environment, you build your home, and you go out and collect resources to continue to do so. This is a perfect setting for a LEGO video game and has huge potential for unique experiences within the game. When the composer Austin Wintory was brought onto the project, there were a lot of conversations about what the music should sound like, but what they ended up landing on was the idea that playing with Lego bricks is full of potential, so the music itself should reflect that idea of potential. Playing with Lego bricks is only limited by imagination, so the theme of LEGO Fortnite needed to capture the same feeling. In practicality, that led to some important decisions regarding the composition. Austin Wintory actually linked the full score to the main theme on his YouTube channel, so I will link that down below and probably put a little thing up here so you can go check that out. But we are going to break down some of the key moments from that theme. Some of the comments that he makes about the score is about how he basically uses the same 5 notes, just played in a variety of ways. Echoing how the same 5 Lego bricks can result in so many different possibilities. He also notes that the piece of music avoids traditional harmony. And when you think about typical Western music, there is an expectation for where music should go. That's why a lot of pop music sounds so similar, because it's comfortable. It's something that we expect and we know where it's going to go. But if you break away from those traditions and write harmony in a way that you don't know where it should go next, then somehow you're subtly aware of the endless possibilities of what follows each chord. This is also true within the melody itself. Now, we've already talked about with LEGO Racers the use of the tritone, or the devil's interval. And in the music for LEGO Racers, this is used in a way to convey quirkiness because it's unexpected and weird. In LEGO Fortnite, not only do we have the exact same interval, but we also have the exact same notes of that interval, the E down to the B flat. But what's different is that this interval is one of the first things that we hear within the theme. And the way it's used, it doesn't come across as quirky as much as it comes across as a message that this is going to be something that is unexpected. The main theme takes creative liberties, and you are about to be taken on an adventure where anything could happen, because within the music, anything might happen. When you define the sound of LEGO video game music, you end up with quirkiness and epicness and imagination. But one of the great things is that all of it is built on that idea of creative play. And while not every LEGO video game has a soundscape that fits all 3 of the criteria, every single LEGO video game has some aspect of epicness or quirkiness or imagination found within the music. Because this is all a part of playing with LEGO bricks, so this is all a part of the sound of LEGO video games. I've had a lot of fun making these, and this will not be the last time that I have a video about LEGO video game music. This was just kind of a general overview. So if you're interested in this kind of content, make sure that you subscribe and hit the bell so you're notified whenever more content comes out. Make sure to leave me a comment if there's some particular LEGO video game you'd like me to look at or some kind of topic you want me to talk about. Thanks again for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.